just time. And so much has shifted in my mind and my emotions have been up and down so much that I'm just like, okay, like I'm literally not attaching myself to anything. And I don't know if I told you this, but I went through the Venus sequence. I'm at the SQ right now, the Venus. So it's like the heart, it's where the heart cracks wide open. And I'm gate 3 or sphere 3. So can you imagine? I kind of want to send you this audio because it blew my mind. I spent a couple hours listening to the audio and just like broke down listening to it. It was just so
Send it to me. I'd
profound.
love to hear it.
So Richard said something. He was on some psychedelic trip with a friend, and they were sitting there in silence out in nature. And his friend, out of nowhere, just says, "All roads lead to death." And they just started laughing because of the impermanence of life. And the whole thing about gate 3 or, gene key 3 is about, the shadow is the chaos and how people when in the shadow tend to cling and attach themselves to things because they're terrified of losing it. And they're like, if you can realize in the chaos, like there's perfection in the chaos because we don't realize that in that chaos, there's actually order. And children know this better than anyone. You sit them and watch them, and they're just in this joyful present state. And you're like, they're
Yeah,
in chaos. They're trying to put these Lego pieces together that obviously don't go together, but that is how they find their order.
that's
And
it. That's it.
and I love that because it leads to innovation. And then the city of it is innocence, which is so beautiful because he talks about the innocence of a child, but then the innocence that is cultivated through living. So you have like the elderly wisdom, and then you have the childlike innocent wisdom.
You become
And
childlike without being childish.
yeah, yeah.
Nina, what cracks me up about you is you speak these long sentences, and I love them. I love them. I love them. Okay, because I know where you're going to go. You start with the problem, and then you start moving towards the solution, and then you start laughing and go. And the solution's really pretty damn easy when you think when you feel it, as opposed to think about it.
Yeah. And
It's,
so
it's beautiful what you do. It really is. Now,
thank
am I
you.
just infatuated with you, or is this all really true? I think it's really true. I'm watching a lot of people all over go through their things, okay, and everybody's going through a lot of things, particularly if they're in transformation. That's what
Mhm.
transformation is: letting go of an old form to find room for a new form.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And when you, yeah, I know you're not sacredly defined. I understand that. But when you go, there's not a lot of confusion about that. Okay. Particularly if you process it to get through all this stuff. Remember, so much of your life wasn't your life.
Yeah.
Your life is going to be something spectacular. And yeah, the unknown, it can be a little, the uncertainty. You know, the cross of uncertainty, what it's made of, the 14 6 and the 8 6, or the
Mhm.
14 5 and the 8 5, the left angle cross of uncertainty. And what is it promising you? It is promising you that you can have everything
Mhm.
if you can be comfortable or at least sane in the birthing process. And you're doing a really good job with that. Good days, bad days, whatever.
Yeah, I like
But
to
you're
think that
doing
I
a really
am,
good
but
job. I know, but you need somebody to tell you that you are, because that. And I'm not telling you this stuff to make up stories. I'm telling you what I experience and see when I'm around you.
yeah. No, I appreciate that. And
Well, yeah,
so another thing he says in that audio is,
yeah.
he likens it to an acorn. An acorn knows what it's going to grow into, but it
Mhm,
doesn't know how it's going to happen. And
mhm.
so when it's in the ground and it starts to, begin to crack out of that shell and begin to grow, it doesn't know what it's going to look like. It doesn't know how many roots it's going to have or tree branches it's going to have or whatever. It sits in that chaos. And so he compares that to life. He's like, just be the acorn who holds that higher vision of what he knows is going to happen, and trust that and just be there in that chaos and know that there is actually,
all it needs is soil and water, which is
yeah,
mud.
and there's actually order in that
Yeah,
chaos because it's bringing you to that
exactly.
long-term vision that you're holding.
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
I've really been
Absolutely.
taking that to heart and contemplating that and sitting with that because I'm comparing it to my life and how this entire year has felt like a dream. Like literally, not necessarily a good or a bad dream. It's just
Just a
there are
dream.
times where I'm walking and I'm just like, reality doesn't feel the same anymore. Like it just doesn't, because I have learned how to surrender so much, because so much has been, I don't want to say taken from me, but I have chosen to go down this road where I'm letting go of things that are not in alignment with me, because that is the path that my soul chose. And I have a hunger to not
There you go.
stay in that life that I was not in alignment with. And so when I think about and reflect on my entire life this year, it has not gone in the way that I thought it was going to go.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I really like that idea of like, okay, I'm the acorn. I don't know how
Mhm.
my journey is going to go, but I have this higher vision of how I want to feel and how I think my life is going to look like. And it may not be exactly that, but it's going to be a form of it. And that's really beautiful. And I can trust that the universe and myself is being guided in the most perfect divine way that I cannot even see. And so that's what's been happening with me. And it's super, super uncomfortable because I'm feeling those shifts happening within me. And it isn't until, time passes by where I can really go back and reflect on that and say, oh, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And I realized this today. I was on a walk today. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling uncomfortable because I'm actually stepping into myself. And I've never really felt like that. Maybe not since I was a child, but I've never had full permission to be myself. And it's unsettling to be in that peace and stillness because it's so unfamiliar to me, but it feels right. And I realized that's what that uncomfortableness was. And I didn't have to fight it because it's just that process of me kind of like gaining the strength in my legs is like a baby animal learning how to walk, It's like, oh, this is something I know I can do, but I didn't realize like how natural it was. So,
You just spoke your unconscious Chiron.
which is
The 12-1, the monk.
okay.
You're being a little Buddhist monk right now. You need to withdraw from all of that stuff. Get out of anything that's going to encourage the conditioning you've already unfortunately experienced. Get to a place. What did you say you want to do in South Carolina? You want to spend some time alone. Be with yourself. And if in that place where you're with yourself, the monk, withdrawal that can only be maintained with communal support. I'm your communal support.
So what you said 12-1, I have 12-4 in my chart as my conscious Mercury.
No, I'm not looking in your chart. I'm looking at Chiron.
Oh, okay.
Chiron's the wounded healer. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing the work 20 years early that you would be doing when you're 49 and a half to 50 years old. That's
Thank
Chiron.
God. Just get that out of the
Already,
way.
this is what I mean. You're already doing the work. It's really remarkable. I look at design in a very different way than most people look at it. Everybody looks at this as some kind of mechanical thing because it was presented to us as a mechanical thing by a guy who had all the great respect in the world for the mechanics, but no respect for the master mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, duty. This is your conscious Chiron. You know what Chiron is. You either get it or you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so duty, the ability, okay, the quality of behavior which expresses the proper balance between extremes, what we talked about before. Finding the middle path.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to confront any challenge without expectations. Harmonic relationships that give support for the fulfillment of any task. Did you get the joke? Harmonic relationships are not something you're extremely used to, that you need to get used to, because there's where your support is. And then, of course, the detriment would be alienation engendered through exaggerated claims, okay? An exaggerated claim in this regard, what is modesty? The 15th hexagram is the love of humanity, okay? What else is it? Modesty. Everybody thinks that a queen, that a peasant trying to be a queen is immodest, okay? What about the queen who's trying to be a peasant? She's just as immodest. She's trying to be something she's not, just like the other person was. So now just simplify the equation. So you got to be yourself.
Yep.
It's ridiculous how simple it all is, but the conditioning, the fear-based, all that stuff just wants to make everything complicated, to give reasons for everything. The most dangerous thing a person can do for you is when you're in the so-called bad mood, when you're in the low end of your awareness. You call it dark, they call it low, whatever, okay? It's the other side of the awareness as it operates in the moment right now, okay, which is going to shift. Find the capacity to be comfortable in that place, and you'll find yourself. And when you
I'm
find
learning.
yourself, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just said I'm learning. I mean, I've spent the last 3 or 4 months in the state of Ohio, and it
ain't you.
It's not me.
One place in Ohio that I really got a big kick out of was in Cincinnati, was Mount Adams. The Mount Adams area was a very trippy, hippie place. I mean, it was a very fun place. I don't mean hippie in any kind of negative way. I mean, it was a very beautiful, calm place. And it was this mountain in the midst of this town. You go up there, and it was like being in a Japanese garden or a Buddhist retreat, okay? Looking at all the nonsense around you. But up on the mountain, it was amazing. Perfect place for a six-line being, your unconscious, to find its consciousness in a place where you can observe all this stuff, but not be accessed by it all.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing great, Nina. You're doing great.
Thanks. It feels rough, when I have my therapy sessions every week, and I go through all of this because the woman that I meet with, she's been through this whole path herself, and she's like, your soul chose this path, and it may be rough for a couple of years, like
might be. It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be, but
it might be.
She's like, you're working through stuff that you're dealing with from past lives, and you were literally clearing out a lot of shit. And so
most people 3 times your age never did it.
Yeah, and I feel that, and it's just finding solace in myself. Like, every time I feel uncomfortable, my first reaction is to reach out to somebody and say, like, to distract myself, or to eat something, or like, whatever. We all have our like different things. And
that's okay.
But I haven't been allowing myself to do that. And the universe hasn't been allowing myself to distract myself. Because
do you mean as a result of lack of resources, or do you mean as a result of lack of will?
No, like not because of lack of resources, but it's because I know the work lies by going into the emotions, and it doesn't lie distracting myself. And everyone's like, oh, after a breakup, you need to distract yourself, and you need to do this and this and this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to spend my 3 hours in meditation throughout the day, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to journal, and I'm going to contemplate, and I'm going to allow myself to cry, and I'm allow myself to be in these low states and these high states. And I'm just going to allow myself to just be, because I'm going to deal with this now. So I'm not repeating the same shit in future relationships, that I'm not going to suppress this, and it's going to come out in different ways. Like, not that I'm trying to heal myself or anything, but I'm just allowing myself to be, so that I can continue to allow myself to be 100% authentic myself. Like, I'm not going to bury myself in work. I'm not going to bury myself in anything, because that's the whole reason I'm in this mess. because I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
bear the pain of breakup, and I held on to
Mm-hmm.
a relationship that was
Mm-hmm.
way past its prime.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so terrified of the pain of that, of cutting that off, that I held on to it. And then look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I realized, like, okay, this is my lesson. I cannot avoid pain. I cannot avoid emotions. Like, it's just, that was a very difficult lesson for me to learn. Like, you just gotta feel through it and face it,
You
because
got
it's
it,
just gonna
honey.
keep compounding.
What would you be ignoring if you succeeded at ignoring emotions?
I don't, myself.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Hello. Yeah, don't think about it too long. You're an emotional creature, and that is a freaking beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, you were trained to apologize for emotions. Excuse me? Do I need to apologize for being female? Do I need to apologize for being white? Do I need to apologize for having, what color eyes do you have?
Like blue green.
Light blue, green eyes? Do I need to apologize for having blonde hair? That's conditioning at a very extreme level. And we know manifestors get their share of it, and we know emotional people get their share of it. So you got a double share of it. It's right there in your chart.
I
And
did.
yeah, yeah. And again, forgiveness is the salvation. And if you're having a little trouble with it, that's okay. That's okay. It takes a while to get to that place. But you'll find that the forgiveness is liberation.
I know.
It's liberation. Yeah. And it took me a while to find that, honey. You know, you're moving at UFO speed compared to my Model A speed.
You
But
know, like, and it's not just forgiveness, like, it's self forgiveness.
yes, and acceptance
Yeah.
that everybody was doing the best they knew how to do based upon the way they were trained. Of course, the miracle says over and over again, you're innocent. You were just trained poorly.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've been aware of, where I'm seeing my blocks are, where I'm judging somebody or I'm not forgiving them, and then I'm being hard on myself for
Mm-hmm.
not being compassionate, and then I'm saying, okay, well, where am I not giving that to myself? And
So
that's where,
the only functional process of a lack of forgiveness is called compassion. You just said it. Every sentence you have has the problem and the solution about 3 words later. It just does.
my mind knows it, but sometimes
Yeah.
my heart, it takes some time.
Well, the heart's a heart is well, depends on what heart you're talking about. The solar plexus and the heart were one center when we were 7 center creatures, but we're not 7 center creatures. Okay. So what differentiated to create 2 out of 1 was the solar plexus. That's what is in the process of differentiation. It's there are 2 channels that are going to break. One's in the mind and the other is in the solar plexus. There's you know, you're doing everything you need to do. The only problem we have is that patience is its own reward, and we're not that damn patient.
I'm learning. I'm learning. I don't, at this point, I don't feel like I have a choice. Like,
Well, you don't
be,
want a choice.
no.
Yeah, I mean, given choices, you'd probably go for ice cream. but and who wouldn't? But at the same time, if you can get past this, and you can, and you are, Nina, there's going to be so much relief coming your way. And I
Yeah.
know you're already experiencing that relief. And the relief is what we want. That's the deliverance. That's the freedom. That's the truth will set you free. That's the promise kept by those words. The truth will set you free. If you can truly be yourself, and because you're a quad right, you need to be cautious about being around too much that isn't, which is why you're going into, you know, not total isolation, but go to be with yourself for some period of time
Yeah.
and reward yourself. Wait, how do you train a dog? Give it a treat after it does what it's supposed to do. Sometimes we're not as smart as a dog. Dog just walks up and sniffs it over and says, "Oh, I'm interested in that. Whoop, not interested in that." We ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
The nose knows.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the whole conditioning aspect of saying, okay, like my mind initially goes back to the past and saying, okay, like how can I go back here to be comfortable again? Because this is what I know, because I don't know what's out there. And then I don't see the possibilities, but over time, as I go through my emotional waves and I'm presented with situations that are very rocky and emotional, they provide
Yep.
different perspectives and open up other doorways that I didn't see before because they're forcing me to let go of the past and they're forcing me to look in a different direction. And so with me going down and stopping in different places before I go down to South Carolina, I'm like, oh, that's something so simple, but I could see where I
Mhm.
had been conditioned to think like
Mhm.
this is the only way. And I'm
Mhm.
seeing like there's not. Like it's, I talked to my therapist and she's like, just imagine yourself as this Merlin with this like bag full of like these glowing wands, and there's an infinite amount of glowing wands. And like this part I kind of made up, but like I I realized that like I was saying this is the only way and I was seeking this certain path, but it's like a dead rotting stick in that bag full of infinite possibilities. And if I just let go of my tight grip of that dead stick and saying this is the only way, I can open all of that up. And the only way I have access to that is by being in the present moment,
Mhm.
because that is where the infinite possibilities are, and not rushing into things and not
Mhm.
closing my mind off to saying like, oh, okay, I'm open to something different happening. But
Mhm.
with all the chaos that has ensued this entire year, like that is what it is teaching me, that there are so many possibilities out there for me. And I just have been so blind to it because I haven't been in the present moment. I haven't been in my body. I've been holding on to that dead stick and I've been looking to the past. So,
Let's have an inquiry about that present moment.
okay.
You're clinically undefined. This means you can be incredibly wise about the moment, okay? But you're defined emotionally, which means spontaneity is trouble for you. So the business of being able to wait things out, you're not looking for the present moment as the spleen would. You're looking for clarity. That's the present moment as an emotional being, clarity. You made a statement. Do you have your chart in front of you? Can you see it?
Yeah, I can
You said my mind goes right back to the old way. Well, look at the Life Force channel you have, making sense of the past. But that's not the only thing that's there. Yeah, there you go. See the 47 to the 64. Okay, there you are, trying to make sense of the past. But look what else is in the mind. You got the 60, you have the 63 sitting there. The 63 is finding the right pattern. What's the right pattern for an emotional creature? Ride your wave until you get to clarity. So it's not about spontaneity. It's about clarity. It's not about how long it takes for you to get to clarity. It's about how clear you are when you get to what you think clarity is.
yeah.
And let's correct my word, not think, feel.
Yes.
When you get to the place where you feel, oh, it'll be a relief. Okay. Oh, be like a mini orgasm. Oh, okay. That's the direction. It's right there
Yeah.
in the chart. It,
And I have friends, very close friends, and I say like, well, this doesn't feel right, and this doesn't, and I
yeah.
don't feel like this is right. And they're like, Nina, you can't always think about feelings. They're not always reliable. Sometimes you just have to be logical about things. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like what I'm saying about feeling, it's just like because my strongest sense is feeling.
Yep.
And that's like such an even deeper
Yep.
type of like intuitiveness. Like it adds just a complete other layer on top of being a quad right. And it's like there's this inner knowing that something's off. And then it's almost like I'm sitting down for dinner and I'm looking at a menu
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, well, what do I feel like eating tonight? And I look
Mm-hmm.
at the fish and the pasta and the pizza or whatever, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, I look at the pizza, I'm like, that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I approach like almost everything in my life. And I didn't realize that I did it that way, but this is how I operate, where I'm like, ooh, something feels off. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm aware of human design and I've been working with writing out my emotional waves, it makes more sense for me to say, ooh, something feels off. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside and wait on this and not
Mm-hmm.
make a decision right away. Because if something doesn't feel right, it's not correct for me.
And I tremendously agree with you that the dream keys is another way of looking at this that is, in my opinion, very brilliant. It's more receptive and more compassionate. I won't say male, female, okay? I'll
Yeah.
say it's more receptive and more compassionate. And that's something that's going to feel better than logic. You only have 3 gates of logic in your entire design. One of them is very significant. It's your earth. That's logic. Okay. And what is it asking you to do? Wait. What is it asking you to do? Stand behind a what do they call those things that they put up in the trees, or they build a blind around them so that something will come up to the hunter rather than the hunter chasing after something, right? So that's the wisdom of waiting. All right. And what is that? Logical. But that's the only real logical gate. I mean, you've got the 63 sitting up there. Okay, well, you're looking for the right formula, and you have what else? Oh, the 58, the joyous. You're looking for joyousness that will come from the right formula by waiting. What does that do? That informs you that you're an emotional creature.
Yep.
All about feeling, dear. And when we get a lot more people that are capable of feeling all there is to feel, things are going to really shift on this planet. You're one of them. I am definitely one of them. I have felt enough stuff to kill 100 ordinary men, and I'm still here. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so ridiculously fun to hang out with you. We do this every time we get together, and it just eventuates. Well, I don't plan it. I don't know what the hell we're going to do. You probably don't either. We're going to get together and do what we do, and this is what eventuates.
Hmm.
I love that word, eventuates. Came out of the Urantia book. Nobody thought of it. Nobody created it. It wasn't anybody's idea. It eventuated because we got in touch with spirit.
Yeah.